On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use. Welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers in our hometown of Green Bay. We are the official podcast of the Lot 1 Tailgate Party, which is at Lambeau Field every home game. This is episode 89, created October 28th, 2024. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me, Jeff in Minnesota, and Neil out on the East Coast. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, gentlemen. Tonight I'm drinking North Coast Brewing barrel-aged Old Rasputin Russian Imperial Stout, and like the Packers, never say die.
Like the Packers, I am drinking the taste of victory, and Jordan Love's brothers had his back in the game, so I am drinking a Brotherly Love Hazy IPA.
All right, and my beverage has become one of the more popular here in Northeast Wisconsin from the Fox River Brewing Company in beautiful Oshkosh, Wisconsin, on the shores of Lake Winnebago, a fishing-themed Blue Bobber Blueberry Ale.
Wait, sorry, John had a craft beer? We better
beer,
stop the episode
beer.
now. I think John might have something wrong with him today.
we might change into beer talk before soon, Neil.
Way
Other
to
than that,
branch out,
it is.
John.
It is a look at Week 8 and the Jacksonville Jaguars game. Hey, we're going to take a tour around the NFC North as that leads us into Week 9, a gold package game as the Packers return home and hosting the Detroit Lions in a throwback matchup, wearing those green 50s jerseys. And we'll get a little bit history of those Lions as well. You can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat and Facebook at the GBC Podcast Green Bay Chat. And just the audio is available on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify by searching for Green Bay Chat. Well, an exciting matchup in Jacksonville. Green Bay walking away with the victory, 30-27, second week in a row. A last-second field goal by our new kicker, Brandon McManus. We've already forgot the other guy's name.
Who?
Who?
Narv something?
It was.
I thought you were talking about Anders Carlson, who seems to be kicking okay out in San Francisco.
Career in San Francisco now, isn't he? All right, those are different stories for different times. Let's talk about Sunday, a game we talked about going to. I think for me anyway, it was my second choice just because of the timing on it. It would have been another hot day for us. It was 82 degrees at kickoff in Jacksonville, Florida. By all accounts that we saw online, Packer fans took over Duval County and dominated that stadium on Sunday, and it was a beautiful day for a Packer game.
It was a beautiful game. It was a beautiful first quarter other than us not scoring. And the question is, did the Packers defense wilt after that first quarter? Because those first quarter numbers for the defense were great. Jacksonville with 2 3-and-outs and only 15 yards of offense, 0 first downs in that first quarter. Packers with 108 yards of offense. We moved the ball, of course, didn't score yet, but we were on our drive that would lead to our first score. That seems like a great way to start a road game.
One of the things we always talk about is control, who is kind of controlling the game. And even though Green Bay doesn't get in the end zone, I felt that the Packers were strongly in control on both sides of the ball. The offensive line was holding its own. The defense was just well positioned, and everyone was in the right spot. And I think that a game that they expected to be a little bit differently, some people were talking about this as a trap game only because Jacksonville started out 0-5 and you're thinking it's a cakewalk. But realistically, when the schedule came out, and based on how this team played last year, this was a game that you expected to be between two playoff contending teams. Jacksonville has since faltered. Hopefully the Packers didn't overlook them, but I feel like that first quarter, Neil, as you alluded to, was really just getting a feel for what Jaguars team was going to show up, because their last 2 weeks in London, they looked spectacular.
Well, the Packers did look spectacular early on, right? They jumped out to a 10-0 lead. As Neil said, the defense dominated in the first quarter. And it was, I was feeling pretty good through about halfway through the second quarter because the defense completely was dominating. The offense was moving up and down the field. There was the one interception, but Packers, by all metrics at this point, were seemingly really in control of the game till they weren't.
Well, let's stay with that positive first. The Jaguars' first 4 drives, they had 16 yards total, 3-and-out, 3-and-out. Xavier McKinney interception, and another 3-and-out. That is a spectacular way for a defense to take control at the beginning of a game.
Wait. Did you say a Xavier McKinney interception? Wow. That's 6 on the season, and that is spectacular. 6 through 8 games. That puts him on pace technically for 12 now. We were hoping for 17 at one point, but even 12 would be a franchise record. 6 interceptions is a lot. It hasn't happened for a single player, and I think it was about a dozen years was the last time I heard that someone had 6 interceptions for the Packers. I'm, getting his name in the Packer media guide. He's got to get 9 or 10, 10 being the record held by Irv Comp. But it almost feels like teams aren't throwing deep just for that reason. But Trevor Lawrence is a guy who likes to throw deep. I think we kind of saw this one coming as well, that McKinney was going to find a way to get one in this matchup.
And he certainly did, playing center field. Threw it right to him. He hit him between the numbers.
That almost seems shockingly easy, but of course that doesn't give Xavier McKinney enough credit for how he positioned and how he fooled Trevor Lawrence on that play. But yeah, you just look at that play and it's like, I don't even know why Lawrence threw that ball. And that speaks to the genius of Xavier McKinney.
Well, not only that, but it also got the Packers defense back on track with getting another turnover finally after not getting one last game. It was good to see that. I don't know if he baited him into it or whatever he did, threw it right to him, and then that evened. Fortunately, the takeaways one apiece at that point. But again, still seemingly really in control of the game.
Jeff, you sound awfully spoiled here. The Packers now have more turnovers on the year than they did all of last year, but I don't know that we can count on all of these turnovers. They're certainly lovely. It's been a critical portion of how our defense has done well, but I think that, there is variance associated with turnovers, and we're going to need the defense to stop sustained drives in order to do well in the rest of the season, certainly against a good team like Detroit. And unfortunately, after that point, that was our big problem, is that the Jacksonville Jaguars had too many long sustained drives.
Really long sustained drives. And what was even perhaps worse is the fact that they really never got to third down. That was the other thing. They were just driving first and second down, picking up big chunks of yardage. And that we've unfortunately seen this before on occasion. And that's what's really disconcerting, I think.
Although when they did get to third down, that's when the defense was stepping up. There was a point where Jacksonville just could not convert on that third down. So the defense, I don't want you to wait till third down to do what you need to do. There's that dichotomy there, Jeff, like you said. If they're converting on first and second down, they're just marching down the field at will, and it's pretty ugly. But if you can get a couple of stops in and then you can stop them on third down, well, great. Now you've stepped it up a little bit. Let's keep those sustained drives from running as long as they do and get off the field as quickly as you can as far as a defensive player is concerned.
Well, to be fair, on that last drive of the first half, the Packers defense did get off the field in 54 seconds. Unfortunately, it's because the Jaguars drove down the field 53 yards in 54 seconds and kicked a field goal to make it a 3-point game at halftime. And I think that from a defensive perspective is exceptionally disconcerting.
The proverbial bend but don't break defense, the prevent defenses generally prevent the team from winning.
As we get into the second half, we'll talk about injuries. Now players got moved around, and that certainly affected the play calling and the way they performed in the second half. And really just a bizarre second half for the Packers as well in replacing players all the way down to our quarterback as well. But that 13-10 lead at halftime, I think that watching from home anyway, I still felt a strong momentum in the Packers' way. Again, I felt that the team was in control at halftime, even with just the 3-point lead. They had a 10-point lead at one point in that first half, squandered away there, yeah. But to be ahead 13-10 at halftime, even though you're not getting the ball to start the second half, I really felt strong about the first half.
Yeah, and being on the road, too. Taking a lead at halftime on the road. I mean, there was obviously the defense, there was some concerns, but yeah, I didn't feel like, oh no, here we go again or something like that. That they seemed to have, or we were willing them to have really control of this game.
First half numbers, Packers had 231 yards of offense to 152 for Jacksonville. And especially on the passing side, we had 184 passing yards in that first half compared to only 117 for Jacksonville. So you figure you're going against a quarterback of the caliber of Trevor Lawrence, and you hold him to 117 yards of passing in the first half. You feel like you're doing pretty well. And oh, by the way, they also only had 35 rushing yards in that first half. So there was a lot of containment. realistically, the Jaguars had 2 drives in the entire first half that did anything whatsoever. And I think that, yeah, as you were saying, John, you live with that. I said, okay, we mostly were in control. And as long as the 3 and outs were the actual representation of how our defense is playing and not the long drives, then you felt pretty good. And to be fair, we started out the second half with a 3 and out on the Jacksonville Jaguars first drive of the second half. So, okay, everything is looking good at this point.
That's a huge statement right there too, as well, Neil, because Jacksonville, knowing that they were going to get that ball in the second half, the way that they ran that final minute in the first half to get some points on the board, thinking, okay, we can get some points and we're getting the ball back. And they come out and they just, whether they fell flat or the Packer defense was ready for them, that was a huge, again, moment that you're looking at this saying, yes, this Packer team is in control of this game. And even a little bit later in the third quarter, even when Jacksonville does get the touchdown and they do go ahead 17-13, I did not feel that this game was going to get away from this Packer team.
Well, I felt a little bit differently
because
that go-ahead drive, John, was 93 yards. I mean, they just, again, no third downs. I mean, they just kept driving and driving and driving. And it was just, I think when we were texting back and forth, it was just like, wait a minute, this is way too easy. Because you're right. It seemed like, yes, we did have momentum coming out of halftime. We make that first drive stop for the defense. But then all of a sudden, the offense kind of sputters, give them the ball back deep in their territory, too. Yay, Daniel Whelan, right? Kicks him down in the coffin corner. Guess what? They just come back with a vengeance, that offense of the Jaguars.
Yeah, of course, you're skipping one critical part of that Packers first drive of the second half, which is Jordan Love going off injured. And you can certainly see how that might have also given a spark for that Jacksonville team.
Clearly it did. And maybe a little bit demoralizing for the defense for the Packers as well, thinking we've got to step it up here, but they were flat. We just didn't see any engagement, and they drove it right down the field, 93 yards, and take the lead at home. So suddenly they've got momentum. So what do?
We thankfully decided that we're going to run the ball and we're going to stuff it right down their throats. And honestly, that was the drive that sort of defined the game. Yes, clearly the last drive was important, but the fact that we're down, we've got Malik Willis, our backup quarterback, in, and fuck it, we're just going to run all over them, go 80 yards, score a touchdown, and take the lead. And, oh, yeah, this Packer team is serious, and this Packer team will play together.
The thing about when Willis comes into the game, it's like there's no surprise in the play calling, if you've watched enough of this happening, that the Packers go to a run-heavy offense. And if there is a pass, it's typically a quick hitter type pass. Neil, I'm going to ask you from the lineman's perspective, if you're going up to that offensive line and you know that the play call is a run or a pass, you're waiting for all the position calls to be called out and the quarterback to decide where they're going to go with it, and you're waiting to decide whether you're going to go into run mode or pass mode. If you're going to that offensive line thinking, I'm run blocking, and no matter what, I'm run blocking, does that help? Because it felt to me that it did. Just watching them, that they're like, they pound a little bit harder, just knowing that they're going to be run blocking from the huddle all the way to the line.
John, run blocking is way the fuck more fun than pass blocking. Pass blocking, you sit back and you wait for people to come at you. Run blocking, you attack and you run over people. Run blocking is way more exciting as a lineman. And if you know that that's what you're going to do, there is a little bit more of a spring in your step there.
Yeah, it looked that way too. I mean, the offensive line had good control throughout the day as it was. But once Willis came into the game, and you know that it's a run heavy, they really just pounded the hell out of the Jaguars after that.
Yeah, and the third quarter numbers indicate that. Josh Jacobs in the third quarter, 6 rushes for 57 yards, plus that long touchdown, and also Willis with 2 rushes for 25 yards. We had 100 yards of offense in the third quarter. 84 of those yards were on the ground.
Right, which shouldn't have been a surprise if you're the Jacksonville defense. And so does that, like you said, maybe the Packers offensive line, tight ends, wide receivers, because he had a kind of a convoy, Jacobs did, on the way to the end zone on that long run. The wide receivers were out there blocking for him downfield and really celebrated once he got in the end zone. That was a huge, huge score.
Melton and Watson were incredible on Jacobs' long touchdown run. They both made huge blocks and they sustained their blocks. It wasn't just I'm going to get in the way and maybe do something. They were doing critical blocks downfield for several seconds for both of those. Beautiful downfield blocking by the wide receivers on the Jacobs touchdown run.
And I think what it maybe did at this point, based on what happened next, was that run might have energized the Packer defense as well.
Well, yeah. The offense, like I said, they come out and they rally around this backup quarterback. There's no missteps. And what I really like about this play scheme that comes out, even though I think everybody knows Green Bay is going to run in this situation, it just says, we're going to run it. Go ahead and try to stop us. Listening to the post-game show as well, reporters talking to Malik Willis, and they're talking about the game plan throughout the week and reps throughout the week. And they asked Malik Willis, how many reps did you get in this week in preparation from this game? And he didn't hesitate. He said, none. Those all go to the starters. Because the reporter was like trying to bait him. You get 2, 3, how many reps did you get? And Willis just, none. There are none. He's running the scout team the entire time. And then after practice, they do a little book work kind of stuff and talking to, and here's the game plan. Here's what we need you to be paying attention to and be ready for. The role of the backup quarterback is just incredible in the NFL. It's not just some guy holding a clipboard anymore, hoping that he doesn't have to go into play because he doesn't want to get his uniform dirty. I mean, he's working his ass off all week long, running the other team's offense. Then he's got to put in the extra time to make sure he knows what his team is doing. He's in tune with the game the entire time. And that's another thing that was asked of Malik Willis. You saw Jordan Love favoring that leg early in the game, that he looked injured, that there might be a chance. Does that play on your mentality as you're watching the game? And Willis says it's the same. You're always paying attention. You're always ready to go. It's one play at a time. But being in tune with what is going on is what that backup quarterback role is. And we easily have to have one of the best or easily the most efficient backup quarterbacks in the league with the way that Malik Willis has been playing. We've swept the AFC South. Of those 4 games, Malik Willis was the quarterback for 3 of them.
2.5, let's say, John, because the Packers were ahead when Jordan Love went out injured. But yes, the ability that Malik Willis had in stepping up and doing what he needed to win, and he did it both passing and running the football and just setting up the entire offense. Overall, Malik Willis on the day was 4 of 5 passing for 56 yards, and the one that was missed was right through Dobbs' fingers. So a critical play for a first down to Dontavian Wicks is in the third quarter. And yeah, he was clearly ready. He clearly fits well within the Packers system.
56 yards total, but 51 yards to Jaden Reed on one play. That means the other 3 completions went for a whopping 5 yards on the game, right? And that's, again, what type of offense they're going to run with Malik Willis. They're going to tailor it to him with the shorter passes, the quick hitters. We saw the one where it wasn't there and he had to swallow the ball. But that's the other thing, is that run. We're going to run. We're going to run. We're going to throw quick hitters. We're going to run and we're going to run. Now we run a huge play action on you. You've all got sucked in. And here's Jaden Reed on a long pass who's going to get the yards after the catch. And it was just amazing.
Well, especially on a play that they didn't practice. Afterwards, they talked about it. And they just kind of drew that up on the fly. And it was exactly the perfectly called play.
We're getting a little ahead of ourselves, though. We were talking about how we took a lead and then how the defense played off of us taking that lead. And that was a pretty spectacular short sequence that the defense had right after the Packers went ahead 2017.
Jordan Cooper. Wow. Wow. Just, he had it all. He got off the block. He had the sack, and the recovery was something that was absolutely just wanted it more.
Oh,
just
Devontae
a thing
Wyatt
of beauty by the big man
with the big hip check. Yeah, he was. That was a huge move for Wyatt there. Yeah, and then that evolves into another touchdown as well.
Yeah, because they were deep in Jaguar territory, and that at that point I was like, okay, we're back on track. The defense stepped up again. They got that huge sack that I believe I called, as I recall, that text.
Well, you said something has.
You said we would need it, Jeff. You didn't call it.
Okay, fine.
You
But I'm
definitely
really glad
wanted it.
happened anyway.
Just
Definitely
because
was
you
the
want
right.
something, just because you want something doesn't mean it's going to happen, Jeff. That's part of being an adult, is recognizing you don't ever get everything that you want.
But in this case, I got it.
He did. He did. Yeah, it was a huge play.
And Jeff, it was National Tight Ends Day, and who
Yes,
scored
it
that
was.
touchdown immediately thereafter?
Tucker Kraft.
Jeff and his love for the tight ends. Yeah.
Yes.
Boy, you heard enough about National Tight Ends Day all day on Sunday. Do you know how that came about? That started in 2018. The 49ers had a game early in the 2018 season where Kittle and I forget the other tight end were having a huge day. And Jimmy Garoppolo, who was the quarterback at the time, says something like, after the other tight end scores a touchdown, he says, "What is this, National Tight Ends Day or something like that?" And Kittle says, "Yeah, it's a holiday now. Haven't you heard?" And like this story just gained traction, that they talked about it all
That's
season.
the
That
story?
every day should be National Tight Ends Day. And the league picked up on that, and the league said, "Yeah, okay, we're just going to call it that." Now it is officially the fourth Sunday in October is National Tight Ends Day, and it's a league promoted, and that is literally the story behind National Tight Ends Day and nothing else.
Not only did Tucker Kraft have that huge touchdown, but that explosive play in the second quarter where he was not going to be stopped, wide open, catches that beautiful ball. And as he said, he's not going to let a defensive back tackle him. Just one.
3 targets, 3 catches, 78 yards, that big play for 67 yards. That means, the other 2 catches for a total of 11 yards, but really doing the work that a tight end should be doing. He's not there on every play in the sense of flashiness, but he is there blocking, playing the part, and doing what a guy needs to do.
And the other thing about that touchdown pass, it was a gorgeous case of deception because Tucker Kraft is completely open, no defender within yards and yards of him. Beautiful play calling.
Right. Yeah. Packers are in that run heavy mode, and just a little play action. Again, it sucked in the entire defense. And that's when I think the Jaguars defense is going to be watching on film going, yeah, we got fooled. That and the Jaden Reed play, both of them, they got taken in by Green Bay going to that run heavy, and it worked.
And this is where it seems like the Packers now are in control at this point. They're up 27-17.
Sure, it's your second 10-point lead of the game. Of course you're in control, right?
Exactly. Well, and it seemed like that as well, because then the Jaguars have another 3 and out.
Yeah.
And the problem is, at that point, the Packers offense wasn't able to have the longer sustained drive. And I think that when I look at our play calls from a game by game perspective, it seems like there's 1 or 2 drives a game where we just seem to get overly predictable as far as what we're going to do, not enough variety. And on that drive that we got after the Jaguars 3 and out, starts out great. Jacobs 11-yard run, another Jacobs 8-yard run, but then short Jacobs run, Wilson 0, incompletion on a long. Now that was the one that went through Dobbs' fingers, to be fair. And then a negative 3-yard pass to Wilson. And we became predictable and had too many short passes on the day, and short passes and short runs. And just looking at the receiving numbers for our running backs on the day, our running backs, Brooks, Wilson, and Jacobs combined had 4 receptions for a total of negative 3 yards receiving for our running backs on the day. And it seems that we are very enamored of those short swing passes, and those are not seemingly very effective the way that we're running them right now. And we've got to figure out a way to make Josh Jacobs especially more effective in our passing game. Clearly, when he's got the ball in space, he's able to make things happen. And Jacobs, with a single reception for -2, is not taking advantage of all of the talents that Josh Jacobs has.
I totally agree with you, Neil. What I was looking for in that play calling, at least on that drive, was maybe a misdirection, something Malik Willis, a bootleg, something to get him moving around, to get the defense sort of back on their heels. But that didn't happen. It was just these really vanilla short calls. And the Jaguar defense at that point was totally ready for it and shut us down.
But still, we punt the ball, and there's under 10 minutes left to play. We've got a 10-point lead. Everything's good, right?
Right. That's what I said earlier. It should be, right? It's your second 10-point lead of the game. You've definitely been in control of this game. What the hell happened down the stretch?
Another one of these sustained drives
Yeah.
over 50 yards where the defense it was too easy. And this took a little bit longer. It was more of a sustained drive, but it seemed, again, too easy. This prevent defense just kind of sitting back, and it just was not effective because one of the major components was that the Packers' defensive line was not getting pressure on the quarterback. They just couldn't get near him because he's not a runner. He's not a threat like the other quarterbacks we've faced.
I mean, to be fair, Jeff, Trevor Lawrence did get a rushing touchdown in the game that was based on his legs.
Fine. But that is definitely not his forte. And he's more of a pocket passer. And they just could not get to him. And that really started to show. And again, maybe the defense was getting tired here because they were just sort of sitting back. And Jaguars were on attack mode at this point.
Yeah, the Packers only had 4 quarterback hits total in that game. And yeah, if you're looking at a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence, who had 33 dropbacks in that game, that's not going to get it done. But the other thing is that, and we've seen this in a number of games this year, is that when the opposing team gets a first down, they seem to string multiple first downs together in a row as if, okay, we get it once, we attack again. And specifically on that drive, 8-yard pass for first down, 21-yard pass for first down, and then a 14-yard Bigsby run. Bam, bam, bam. And in 3 plays, they moved 43 yards down the field.
Now, fortunately, the defense stiffened a little bit and only allowed a successful field goal. But still, at this point, it was like, okay, that was kind of yucky. Didn't like the feeling of the defense. It was just too easy. So, okay, maybe the offense, again, now Packer offense, let's get a sustained drive. They know they're going to run it, but can we do something here? Again, misdirection, something. That just didn't happen at all, to your point of being super conservative.
Right. I mean, it was 5:36 left in the game. This is exactly the situation where one sustained drive could end the game. Even if we don't score a field goal, you do one long drive and we can put this game out of reach. And what do we do? 1-yard run to Jacobs, 2-yard run to Jacobs, 3rd and 7, it's long. And Malik Willis takes a sack because, well, it was 3rd and long. And this has been a continuing issue that we've got to avoid those 3rd and long plays if we're going to be successful. And guess what? Going hyper conservative on those first 2 plays is what led to the 3rd and long.
And that's what I mentioned earlier too, knowing Willis plays to those quick hitters on that 3rd down play. That quick hitter was taken away from him and he just had no second option on that play. You could see he was just like, I don't know what to do with the ball now. And there was no lane for him to run either. Yeah, it's very disheartening to see a team that in control as much as it is just kind of fall apart. It's like, here's where we need you the most to take control of this game. And it's a 3-and-out.
But then it gets worse, unfortunately. So Daniel Whelan steps in again. Great punt.
Yeah, huge.
Another one of these fabulous punts. So you're thinking, okay, flip the field and defense, just let's kind of salt this one away or not.
The big thing on the defense is Evan Williams not being in there.
Yeah.
And now you have to think about this. This is a rookie, 4th-round draft pick who barely played in the first couple of weeks of the season that is now so heavily relied upon in the safety position. Javon Bullard gets moved up to the slot corner position effectively. It allows Edgerrin Cooper to play stronger as well. And his injury taking him out of the game moves everybody back to kind of a secondary position for all of them. And how much did that defense fall apart without him? I mean, this is a testament for Rookie of the Year, right? Just in this one game, how much this defense got stronger with Evan Williams kind of getting on board with this team and this scheme. And now he's out, and it's like, oh my gosh, nobody knew what to do anymore in that last drive.
Yeah, I mean, you look at disconcerting. Again, there's 3:50 left in the ball game when Jacksonville gets the ball. And they start out with their first 3 plays, a 12-yard pass for first down, 15-yard pass, and a 20-yard pass. In 3 plays, they have moved 47 yards down the field. That's not a way to have a drive that is going to stop them from scoring.
Effortlessly, and again, no pressure on Trevor Lawrence. None. Yeah. Now, these were pretty quick hitters, but still, the defense was totally on their heels. And it certainly looked like they were just gassed.
Lack of pressure up front and just kind of, I guess, positioning downfield. And again, talking about not just Evan Williams being off the field and everybody moving around, but now we look at, Valentine not really progressing from where he was last year. And then other players, where are they on this defense? Valentine not being out there. Kalen King and Keaton Oladapo just are not developing in these positions like they expected them to do.
Can we say Eric Stokes? I mean, Eric Stokes.
And what the hell is going on with Eric Stokes? Yes, thank you, Neil. Right. And even Jair did not have a day. It was, I think, in the fourth quarter where I said, oh, that's right. Jair's playing today.
Yeah.
He just disappeared out there.
In the fourth quarter, Trevor Lawrence, 10 of 14, 123 yards with a touchdown pass, 123 yards in just the fourth quarter for Trevor Lawrence. And I think the most significant thing about that drive where the Jaguars tied it is that they decided to kick the extra point rather than go for two. As they're going down the field, it's like they're annihilating our defense. They're idiots if they don't go for two. But thankfully, they decided we're going to be conservative, kick that extra point, and put the Packers such that they're tied, such that, okay, we can go down, we can kick a game-winning field goal, but if we don't, the game is tied. I think that lack of pressure that the Packers had because they didn't need to score on their last drive certainly played into their ability to be successful.
Neil, that's a situation that kind of plays to our conversation of, kind of old school philosophy versus modern day analytics. And you're right. The way that Jacksonville was dominating, the analytics said go for two there. But the old school philosophy is if you're at home, play for the tie. If you're on the road, go for the win. But having that kind of that home field advantage, going for the tie, hoping that you can get this game into overtime, I think that's where Doug Peterson was going with this one. And knowing Doug's been around a while, that's probably what happened there, even though probably everyone in the stadium, everyone watching the game, even the announcers were saying they should or most likely will go for two on this touchdown if they score a touchdown here. That really would have made a difference in kind of how Green Bay probably played that final drive, even because you're playing because you have to score, not because, it just scoring would be a good thing to get to the end of the game.
But they did leave a lot of time. They scored really quickly. So the Packers get it back essentially with 2 minutes left, the 2-minute drill. So again, now we're thinking, okay, what's going to happen? Are they going to run it? Are the Packers going to be conservative here, play for overtime? But they chose not to. Thank God.
They're in a situation where they're playing for, it's a tie game. Can you get to overtime and can you take control of the overtime? If you can get downfield and get into field goal range, are you going to get a field goal? They were in control of the situation. They were in the driver's seat there. You look at the time on the clock, though, too, and this is really evident when they do get down close to the goal line, they don't want to give the ball back to Jacksonville. It's clearly evident that they know that the defense is gassed, that nobody's going to be able to get in the right position to do anything. They're going to get picked apart on defense. And that was the other factor there. It's like, okay, we can get to overtime if we absolutely have to, but boy, if we can score. And really, it was a perfect storm of events for the Packers and how they got down there to score.
And the selfless play by Chris Brooks, the running back. I mean, this guy, he's headed for the end zone and has the wherewithal to not get in the end zone, to drop.
He had the coaches telling him before that. I mean, yes, he had to actually make that decision, but I'm going to put that one in coaching that they said very clearly, do not run into the end zone if you have that opportunity, because we can run out the clock and kick a game-winning field goal. But independent of that, I think that obviously that long pass to Reed, or that pass to Reed that ended up being a long pass more correctly, was central, because I don't think if it goes to overtime, we are going to win that game, because Trevor Lawrence was just running against our defense. I think they score 7 points in overtime no matter what. I'm not as confident of us scoring 7 points in overtime. I think it was mission critical that we went and scored that field goal to win the game in regulation as far as winning this game.
I agree. Again, feeling that momentum going down. And talking about Chris Brooks, I mean, here's a second-year player. He was in Miami last year. He comes to Green Bay after training camp. He's getting his reps. He's doing everything that he is required to do, everything he's asked to do. His coaches love him. He's a great teammate. And there is your first NFL touchdown right there in front of your face. And it's like, no, I'm just going to lay down on the field right here and take a nap. He did. This is a huge play for him. He was not looking for his own glory. He knew exactly what to do. You're right, Neil. He was told. He did exactly what he was told to do, and that's what you do when you're the third running back and potentially the fourth running back when Marshawn Lloyd comes back from injury and things like that. So he's doing everything he needs to do to stay on this roster, and that is exactly what happened on his play there. Good choice, excellent move, and it allows that clock to keep running for the Packers to walk away with this one. And with that time running down, then Green Bay gets set up in the middle of the field. They kneel into the right position. And when you saw that lineup for the field goal on TV, Jeff, looking at that, it didn't matter. Braden Narvison, Anders Carlson, your mom, anybody was going to make that field goal.
I disagree with you, John. I wholly disagree with you based on field goal kickers since Mason Crosby. I actually, in this particular case, I did have a great deal of confidence because of what he did last week, what McManus did last week. And he just looks smooth. He just looks comfortable, as a veteran kicker should. And to Neil's point earlier, he just looks like he belongs out there, and he's not going to get phased. And that it was just automatic, and it was really close. So yes.
Right. It's his third field goal of the game as well. 3 field goals, 3 extra points. He had a day.
He did. And I will note this is the first we've mentioned about the asshats all game. This has got to be the most positive game as far as the asshats are concerned, because we have nothing negative asshattery related.
Yeah, we'll hold on to that for now, Neil, because next week with Detroit, it could be a different story, the way Detroit's special teams have been playing. Final score once again in Jacksonville, Green Bay wins the game 30-27. One other item to note, this was a statistic, if I can say that word, put up on the Packers Twitter page. It was for Tucker Kraft, his 16th straight game with multiple catches. And that ties a franchise record in the what is considered the Super Bowl era. Both Ron Kramer and Jackie Harris, there's a name you haven't heard in a while. Both Ron Kramer and Jackie Harris had 16 game stretches with multiple catches in a game. So at home next week, Tucker Kraft can really get his name in the media guide if he gets a big day at Lambeau Field. Before we talk about that, let's take a quick look around the NFC North. Jeff, let's start in your neighborhood first. The Vikings, from a team that after 5 weeks, they thought they had won the Super Bowl. Now 2 weeks in a row, not getting a win and kind of getting handled by the Los Angeles Rams. A game, yeah, okay, there was a face mask there that led to that safety, but does that really change the outcome of the game? The Rams are still going to win that match.
The Vikings, social media, etc., howling about the no call. But you know what? They're on pace. So they win the first 5. They've lost the next 2, and stay tuned because their schedule's not going to get any easier. And Sam Darnold might be who we thought. Stay tuned.
Our favorite term that we learned from our scientist friend Neil, regressing to the mean. It works in sports as well, right, Neil?
It absolutely does. The statistics matter.
And then the Chicago Bears in a game that has a highlight to it that not only will be played at the end of this season, but for the next 100 years, that highlight of a Hail Mary in Washington from Jaden Daniels downfield as time winds out. He had 16 seconds he was running around for before he threw that ball. Now, this is a game that was shit all the way through, right? I mean, Washington's got a 12-7 lead. Nobody can do anything. Chicago gets a touchdown late to go ahead. They get the 2-point conversion. They're thinking, all right, 15-12. We can hold them even if they get a field goal. We're going to overtime. And the most incredible Hail Mary that we've probably seen in our life, if not at least in a couple of years, right? That didn't happen to Aaron Rodgers, a non-Packer Hail Mary, if you will.
But it wasn't the Hail Mary that was the best part of that. It was the fan video afterwards showing the Bears cornerback yapping with the Commanders fans for several seconds into the play before he realized, oh, I guess I should go after and defend here. Runs in, defends, knocks the ball right back to the Commanders receiver for the touchdown. Just ultimate schadenfreude as far as the Bears are concerned.
In his defense, though, Neil, he's got incredible recovery speed. Did you see how quickly he got over there, though? I mean, come on. This is a guy that, did he have a bonehead move? Yes. Is he going to get cut this week? Probably not. But he's, going to get a boot in the ass a few times, I'm sure. just to make sure that he is in tune with the game.
John, he had great recovery speed for his legs. He did not have great recovery speed for his brain, because if he had better brain recovery speed, he wouldn't have batted the ball where it ended up going.
You knock it down. And honestly, the play before the Hail Mary, the awful, terrible Bear defense.
Yeah.
They played off 20? They were expecting the Hail Mary there. So basically, Jaden Daniels is like, oh, that's fine. We'll just throw a 15, 18-yard pass down the field to set up the Hail Mary. What team does that? Well, the Bears.
Yeah, great 15-yard out.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. This is the thing. You know that you can't throw a Hail Mary more than about 60 yards. So you've got to get to that point that a Hail Mary is reasonable. And the obvious play on that penultimate play was, well, I got to get the ball into Hail Mary range, and to not defend against that is just preposterous. And thank God, I love the Bears for that.
Jaden Daniels was standing on the 35-yard line when he launched that ball up in the air, and he had injured his ribs in the game. Bruised ribs, I guess, is the diagnosis on him. And where that ball comes down is effectively just short of the goal line. So it does travel over 60 yards in the air before it's batted. And not only that, but it's 60 yards in a straight line from where he threw it to where it came down. Just incredible trajectory on that pass. And then everybody just being in the right place at the right time with that tip. And it's like, hey, look what I got.
And game over. And what a crushing loss, though, for the Bears. Sure. I mean, you love to see it. But
yes.
But one of the things about that crushing loss is it involved Caleb Williams looking like the Caleb Williams you expected for a rookie. 10 of 24 for only 131 yards on that game, and 2 sacks for 20 yards. So 111 net passing yards on 26 dropbacks for Caleb Williams.
The loss drops the Bears down to 4-3. They're at the bottom of the NFC North. Minnesota 5-2, but those Detroit Lions, they just said, we're not fucking around. And they took care of the Tennessee Titans with a 52-14 win. The Lions 6-1, Packers now 6-2, but Detroit in that Tennessee game, they were hitting on every single aspect. Offense, defense, special teams, doesn't matter. And this is a hot team, considered one of the best in the NFL, coming to Lambeau Field this week.
So, John, the Lions did dominate Tennessee 52-14. And you'd expect with a blowout like that the quarterbacks would have had huge days. Jared Goff would have had just a gigantic statistical great day. So Jared Goff's numbers, he was 12 of 15 for 85 yards. Now, he had 3 touchdowns, but he took 4 sacks, minus 33 yards. So in roughly 3 quarters of play, he was 12 of 15 for 52 net yards and 3 touchdowns. How did they do this? So then you had Hendon Hooker. He was 2 of 3 for a whopping 6 yards. And then the running back, they decided, what the hell? Let's just have the running back throw a touchdown pass. And he did. David Montgomery was 1 of 1 for 3 yards. So overall, the team had 225 total yards of offense, and they won 52-14, 2.7 yards per pass. I mean, they're not lighting it up here. This is just a statistical anomaly. And Neil, there's one other statistic in here that's even more bizarre.
Jared Goff's QBR in that game was 15.3. A team scores 52 points and a 15.3 QBR in the
even
game.
with 3 touchdown passes.
Even with 3 touchdown passes, because he was so inefficient with all of his plays with the sacks and under 3 yards per attempt overall. And realistically, the key for that game was the Detroit special teams being unworldly, putting up what Aaron Schatz called the best special teams performance in the NFL in the last 30 years. And I think that we need to worry about our asshats in this game coming up on Sunday.
Yes, you're right, Neil. And that's what we were just talking about. I mean, Detroit had a phenomenal day against Tennessee, and our asshats have just been middling, not even middling. If middling would be an upgrade for this team from special teams, it is possible that there can be some very ugly kickoffs and punts at Lambeau Field on Sunday.
The team is going to have to come very focused because Detroit is by far ahead in the NFL in DVOA on the season. They are first in the NFL plus 44.8% DVOA. The Packers are eighth, to be fair, but they're only at plus 18%. Their offense and our offense are basically exactly the same, fourth and fifth. Their defense is third. Ours is 12th. So we're middling on defense. They are excellent on defense. But yes, the biggest difference between these teams is their special teams is far and away first in DVOA. Ours is 26th in DVOA on special teams. And so Detroit's got a dominant defense. We are somewhat better than average on defense. Our offenses are similar. Their special teams are far better than ours. So we need to have some Lambeau magic. On Sunday, we need to have a team that is playing inspired. We need to have a team that wants to erase the embarrassment of the Packers losing at Lambeau last year by those Detroit Lions.
It is once again a gold package game, Neil. So that means that this is what we call the Milwaukee ticket holder game. There are three of them this season. The Vikings game earlier was one of them. Now Detroit coming to town. The thing that's interesting about this is that the ticket prices for this matchup have not come down on the secondary market. I checked again today. We're looking at double and in some places almost three times as much the face value. So this theory of don't sell your ticket to Lions fans. You can't really control who you're selling your tickets to. If you put it out there, right, to Ticketmaster, you're going to get your best price. Hey, if you got tickets to sell and you're going to double your money, go make your money. I'm not going to complain about it a bit, but Packer fans that can make the game, that will make the game great, show up and be there in numbers, realizing, hey, we like having all the fans there. That's what tailgating is all about. We'll talk about that as well. But it could be a day where, just like last year, I think the Detroit fans saw what they did last year, and they may be ready to come and try to do the same thing this year.
To be fair, though, when Detroit came to Green Bay last year, Green Bay as a team was on a down curve, right? We had not had a good start to the season. Packers fans were not encouraged with the direction the season was going. At that point in the season, it did not look like we were going to be anything close to a playoffs team. It was a perfect storm for the Detroit Lions to come in, grab cheap tickets off the secondary market, and show up at Lambeau. But again, they wouldn't have made their noise known at Lambeau if the Packers had played better football. In the end, there were not that many Detroit fans. It's that they were all loud at the end of the game because they blew us out and they all congregated down near the field level. I have a feeling that there will be a significant number of Lions fans, but by the same token, I don't think the numbers are going to be dominant. And as long as the Packers play a solid game, I think the Packers fans are going to be the ones that are dominant in this game.
The other thing about that game last year, Neil, is it was a Thursday night game. Remember that. And it was that back-to-back Sunday to Thursday, which really threw things off. Again, the Milwaukee ticket holders don't want to drive up to Green Bay on a Thursday. That lesson ideally was learned. But this being a Sunday game, now this is going to be a little bit different. Not only is it a Sunday game, it's a Sunday 3:25 kickoff, which ideally Milwaukee fans means you can get to Green Bay early. I know you believe that on the noon games, you can leave Milwaukee at 10 o'clock, pull up at 11:45, park next to the stadium and walk in. It doesn't happen that way anymore. So please, parking lots, tailgating open starts at 11:25 a.m. The bars will be open earlier than that. Please get to Green Bay early. Get ready to show your colors, and let's get out there and have a great time as Packer fans on Sunday.
Can I go back to statistics, John?
Yes, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to rant about tailgating and Packers fans again before we're done here, Neil.
Let him go. He's rolling. So I went through the DVOA numbers, but if you actually look at yardage numbers, the Packers and Lions are exceptionally evenly matched on the season. Offensive yards, Packers 388 per game, Detroit 385 per game. That is, the Packers are ahead. Passing yards, Packers 9th, Lions 11th. Running yards per game, Packers 5th, Lions 6th. So by all of the yardage metrics for our offense, we have a slightly more productive offense. Essentially, they're exactly the same on offense. On defense, by yards per game, we also have an edge. Now, neither team is good by yards per game. Let me just start out with that. Packers 16th, 327 per game. Lions 349 per game. Lions passing defense 27th in the NFL, allowing 248 yards per game. Their run defense, on the other hand, 5th in the NFL. But the DVOA numbers, I think, certainly they're based on opponent, but the DVOA numbers make it seem like there's a much larger gap. And certainly there is a gap as far as perception of the differences between these two teams. But the reality is, if you look at yardage numbers per game, these two teams are really close on the season. And I think that is a situation where the Packers, if they come sufficiently motivated, if Jordan Love plays, and I think we need Jordan Love to give us our best chance here, even if he's not at 100%. But I think that this is a situation where we've got a chance to say, aha, no, this is not Detroit running away with the division. It's not Detroit running away with the NFC. It's not Detroit is the prohibitive Super Bowl favorite. But the Packers are in this game too. The Packers know that they've got the opportunity to go ahead of Detroit in the NFC North standings. They know what is at stake in this game. And I think that we're in for a very, very fun game.
Hey, Neil, at the start of the season, all three of us picked this as a Packer victory here. And we talked about this being a signature win that Green Bay needed to have. And I love your enthusiasm there. But here's the way I see it. I see that this is an injured team. Fortunately, no significant injuries to our quarterback, to Jair Alexander, Evan Williams. No significant injuries, but that doesn't mean that they aren't dinged up a bit. If the Detroit Lions want to peak in week 9 and hang their hat on a victory at Lambeau Field over the Green Bay Packers in week 9, go ahead, you can have it. I think that the Packers probably dinged up a little bit. Between that and the Lions' momentum, I'm going to change my pick for this week. I think that Green Bay takes a heartbreaking loss to the Lions here going into the bye week, but we'll have the bye week to recover and get on track for Bears week when we come back from that. So I'm changing my pick. What do you guys think of this week?
Well, John, I'm not going to change my pick.
All right, good.
It's interesting because, like you brought up, the bye week is coming up. So is this a mindset that just to really go all out and then there's a week to rest and to show the rest of the NFC that, okay, like you said, the Lions are not going to come into Lambeau, push us around. I mean, this is for the division lead. This is it. And this is huge, head to head. And it's in Green Bay on hopefully a beautiful fall afternoon. And I'd really like to see the Packers not mail this one in. This is super important, and it's a perception. The DVOA numbers, and like Neil said, these are really, really, really closely matched teams. There's going to be one or two goofy-ass things that could change the outcome of this. Hopefully the ball bounces our way, but between the fans and it being the late national game and all of this build-up and things like that, this is really our opportunity to shine here, to show that, okay, the road perhaps to the Super Bowl, certainly through the NFC, goes through Green Bay and not Detroit.
John, this is a classic head versus heart conundrum. And I understand everything that you are saying. And if I were not cheering for one of the two teams involved in this game, I would say, John, that is a perfectly reasonable analysis. But I'm going to go with Jeff. I think the Packers team realizes that this is a step that they need to take. They need to get over those Detroit Lions. And I actually don't think that Detroit is a concern about peaking early. That's actually a concern I have about Detroit. They're not the Vikings. They expect to be playing through the championship game and through the Super Bowl. And so if you're going to knock them out, you need to start to chip away at them in week 9, chip away at their confidence, let them realize that there's another team, there's another dog that is in this NFC North. There's another dog aiming for the NFC title, and that is the Packers. And I think the players are going to come exceptionally motivated. Obviously, Detroit's players will as well. I think it's going to be a really well-played game. It's going to be a fun game. We're going to need some breaks to go our way, but we've got playmakers who can cause those breaks to happen. And that's what's going to occur in this game, in my opinion. I'm very hopeful. I'm going to ignore John's thoughts, despite how rational I think they are, because I think this Packers team is going to want this game to be a signature victory.
And regardless of all of that, tailgating is still going to happen because the Lot 1 tailgate party is there, whether it is a green package game or a gold package game, preseason, postseason, doesn't matter. So kickoff is at 3:25. That means the parking lots open at 11:25 a.m. And you can be there, and you can even, this is one of those times where you don't have to be there super early. If you want to be there at 11:25 to see the parade of cars coming in and watch the tailgate party set up, it is a sight to behold. to watch everybody get their vehicles set up and all their stuff out of their vehicles and their flags up and everything ready to go. Temperature-wise, could be a rather mild to cool day on Sunday, considering that Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, Green Bay is looking to set record high temperatures on Tuesday and Wednesday. Temperature records that go back to 1937 and 1901, respectively, with temperatures on Tuesday and Wednesday. By Sunday, it's going to be hunting weather, Neil, right? It's hunting season's right around the corner, so we're going to start cooling things off. Should be in the 50s for Sunday. Possible rain. I think there's a 35% chance of rain predicted right now for Green Bay on Sunday, so bring your poncho as well, but be ready to tailgate. Bring your drinking shoes as well as your poncho.
The first meeting in the rivalry between the Lions and the Packers was on November 2nd, 1930, when the Packers played the Portsmouth, Ohio Spartans in Green Bay, and Green Bay won 47-13. Starting in 1932, the Spartans and the Packers would begin playing each other twice each year, and they're renewing their rivalry again in 2024. In the spring of 1934, the Spartans, who were owned by local shareholders, were forced to sell to a group of investors in Detroit, thus becoming the Detroit Lions and leaving the Green Bay Packers as the only remaining small-town team. The Detroit Lions had great success in their first few decades in the league, winning NFL titles in 1935, 1952, 53, and 57. Kind of a dynasty back in the 50s for these Lions. However, Detroit has not won an NFL championship since. This will be the 190th meeting between the teams, with the Packers holding a 106, 76, and 7 advantage. There's been a ton of memorable plays throughout the almost 100 years that these teams have been meeting. There's two that stand out for me. The first, the 40-yard touchdown pass with 55 seconds left from Brett Favre to Sterling Sharp to give the Packers a 24-21 win in the first ever playoff meeting between these teams on January 8th, 1994. This was also the very first home playoff loss for the Lions. The second, and we've talked about Hail Marys before. Yes, I'm going to bring this one up. The 61-yard Hail Mary from Aaron Rodgers to Richard Rodgers, Rodgers to Rodgers, on an untimed play at the end of the game to cap the largest comeback in the history of this series, 20 points, and give the Packers a 27-23 win just a few years ago, December 3rd, 2015. Hopefully we'll see another good, close game. And hopefully we won't need, as Packer fans, to see a Hail Mary like we've seen before from Aaron Rodgers, whomever throws it. We don't need another Hail Mary. We want to be leading, we want to win, and we want to see the Packers take control of this division on a huge game on hopefully in a beautiful and idyllic fall afternoon in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Go Pack, go.
Quick note for all you Lions fans out there. Portsmouth, Ohio is south of Columbus, just on the border with Kentucky. So if you're a fan of the Detroit Lions, you're really an Ohio State fan because you're right in Buckeyes territory. So congratulations, Detroit fans. You're just cheering for Ohio State. My final thought focuses on our defense. Our defense certainly had great moments against the Jaguars. It's had great moments all season, but it's also had extended moments where it is not performing at the level that you expect. And specifically, the Packers defense has 7 former Packers first-round picks. The Packers defense is actually the second most expensive defense in the entire NFL based on the salary cap cost of our defense. Our defense should not be a middling unit where we're talking about, wow, we're just barely above 15th in DVOA. Our defense should be a dominant unit based on the free agent capital, based on the spending that we've done on our players, based on the first-round draft picks. And it is time for this defense to not just occasionally, but for an entire game, rise to that level of being one of the best defenses in the NFL, which they should be based on what the capital investment is on this defense. I'm looking forward to that next level for those players on this defense, not just the Jeff Hafley scheme, but for those players all consistently performing at that level. They should have plenty of motivation for a game against the Lions. They obviously have that underlying talent. Now is the time for that talent to come through. I look forward to seeing it against the Lions. Go Pack, go.
If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit subscribe, leave a comment. You can find the GBC podcast at Green Bay Chat. That's all one word, Green Bay Chat. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. On Facebook, it's the GBC Podcast, Green Bay Chat. And you can follow us on any and all of those social media platforms. May you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, Jeff's going to join us for the good night this time. Excellent.
What?
Tuesday night.
What? I don't even know what.
Good night.